Okay, I better be quick. My kids keep asking for different shows on Netflix. Yes, I'm a bad dad because I'm making this video while my kids are watching TV. Uh, but we do what we must. Now, I've got to be quick. Okay, so I'm going to race through this other PowerPoint I've got on human rights and approaches to human rights. And hopefully then we've done human rights to death and you're liberated to write excellent essays. Alright, you guys know what the syllabus says, I'm going to skip through that. And so here's a nice little summary of the different approaches to rights in some of the countries you might be more familiar with. So a Bill of Rights passed by Parliament, such as in Victoria. We have the UK and New Zealand. A Bill of Rights in the Constitution is the approach that's taken by Canada, South Africa and the United States. And of course we have a higgledy-piggledy approach. We have some rights in our Constitution, some rights in legislation, some rights in common law, but they are not in one place, and so you have to know what you're looking for to work out how many rights we have and where they exist. Okay, enforcing bills of rights. So this might be something you wish to explore for your essay. You have a court-based approach where the courts overrule actions by government, laws passed by Parliament, to declare that those laws are incompatible with the Bill of Rights that's in your Constitution, and then it's incumbent on the lawmakers to find some compatible solution to whatever you want to get done, such as Guantanamo Bay, for instance. Watchdog approach. So the rights are protected under statute, and then you create an independent statutory body to check that these rights are not being infringed upon by other statutes or by other people. And then finally, Ewan, for God's sakes, a complaints-based approach. So this requires individuals or groups to bring an action to court. So you're relying on the actual people to fight for their rights and to have the courts, agree with them and protect those rights. Of course, that complaints-based approach is reliant upon a informed public that know what their rights are. Because if you don't know what your rights are, you won't know when to fight for them. Oh, for God's sakes. Okay. Yes, very good. Okay. Alright, so where am I? Okay, the US approach. So the Constitution obviously is a very important document for Australia. Stop pressing stuff. As you know, the first 10 amendments form the majority of the Bill of Rights, and so the good example here is the pleading the fifth, which is their right to silence, to not incriminate themselves. The Americans are so well versed in their rights that they just say the number and everyone in America knows what the number's referring to. The First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fifth Amendment, and so on. Whereas in Australia, you'd be hard pressed to get a coherent answer from anyone about what their rights are and where those rights exist. Nothing new there. Nothing really new there. That's going to help you for your essay. Okay, so this might be relevant to you. That the only way these rights can be removed is to get them out of the Constitution, to cauterize them out, and we all know that process is very long, and it's actually probably more difficult than the Australian method. As you can see there, the bill must be passed through not just an ordinary majority, but a 2/3 majority of both houses of Congress. Okay, 2/3, that's a significant majority. And then the bill must be then taken to the states and approved by at least 3/4 of the 50 states. So, as you can imagine, any attempt to remove those rights would be met with probable opposition, and therefore probably will never happen. Even the ones where a lot of people don't want the Bill of the Right to Bear Arms, for example, number 2 there, it's probably never going to happen, let's be honest. There's just too much suspicion. Too much suspicion amongst the population that if you take away a right, what you're effectively doing, and this is probably a fair point. Remember, the whole point of Unit 4 is accountability, and human rights are another sort of layer adding accountability to government, because when you make a human right and you put it in your law, then that government is accountable to those rights. In other words, they must always ensure they never infringe upon the rights, and if it's a positive right, they must always spend the money to make sure that right is being exercised and respected by the people. So if you take a right away, even the right to bear arms, what you're technically doing is you're freeing the government. You're taking one of its chains away, something that it can't do, like take people's guns off them, and you're taking away a freedom of the people. So the people are less free, because now they no longer have an automatic right to hold a firearm or whatever. So as controversial as that right is, you can see why it's highly unlikely it'll ever get removed, because it is making a government more powerful at the expense of the public. Okay. As ludicrous as that might sound, especially from Australia, who actually did something about gun control, and we haven't had a single mass murder for over 20 years. Fingers crossed. Okay. So, there's a nice summary of what rights they have: freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, freedom to petition the Parliament, or the Congress as they call it, the right to keep and to bear arms. Don't worry about the soldiers one. You have a right to privacy. Government can't search your property without a warrant. And then, of course, a whole pile of rights relating to if you are accused of a crime. And yeah, nothing new there. Okay. So, don't forget, of course, one of your points might be that a Bill of Rights makes the judges more powerful and gives them an extra avenue to strike down legislation passed by Parliament. And you could argue that either way. I know some of you are arguing that that's a bad thing, that the judges are becoming too powerful and are infringing upon the popular sovereignty that a Parliament is supposed to have. But others of you might be saying this is a bloody good thing. Make the judges more powerful, because they will look out for our interests. They can be relied upon to look out for our interests when we can't look after them ourselves. So there's 2 ways of arguing it. So here's a nice example for you of this happening, that the right to bear arms was interpreted, and they interpret it to say it extended to the individual, not just a state's right to have a militia that could potentially fight a tyrannical federal government. Remember, that was one of the suspicions, was that this federal government's going to get too powerful in the future, so I want to maintain my right to a militia. In Australia, we lacked the population and the resources, so we obviously did not give our states the right to have their own armies, because we were pooling our resources to have a national defence force. Okay, so yeah, yes, Owen. Hang on, pause. Okay, and the 13th Amendment is quite amusing. So in 1791 they forgot to mention that slavery was a bad thing. It took them a while, and so you can see that they're the 13th. And I'm going to race through the rest of it. I don't think there's all that much else that's of use to you. The issue of implied rights. So again, this is about the power of the courts. So even if the rights aren't there, some courts have taken it upon themselves to say, well, it's an implication of this section of the Constitution, or this part of the Constitution, or the entire Constitution. It's implied that if these things are in our Constitution, then this right must exist. Otherwise, the Constitution won't work as it should. Okay, it's a bit of a long bow to draw, and has caused much interest. And again, you can argue it either way. You can say this is a wonderful development in legal jurisprudence, or you could say this is a scary expansion of the power of the courts. Either way. Okay. And I'm getting a bit distracted here with kids, so sorry about that. Alright, so here's a couple of useful slices to finish off. So similarities. Their rights can only be removed by amending the Constitution, and our very few rights in our Constitution have the same protection. Although you could argue that our referendum process is at least theoretically easier to achieve, even though we've only had 8 out of 44 attempts. The US has had 27, I think, amendments. I don't know how many times they've attempted. You'd have to look that up with your research to come to a conclusion about which process is more likely to occur. Implied rights, like I said, both courts, the High Court and the Supreme Court in the USA, have both done this trick, so you might want to explore that. The courts are the place where rights are protected, and where you seek to get any redress if your rights have been infringed upon. And the separation of powers is also a technique used to protect us from government tyranny. Differences. Okay, like I said, how we change the Constitution is different. They have a extensive list of entrenched rights, whereas we've only got a few protected rights in our Constitution, so that's a difference. And we also have a difference that our government and our parliament are combined, whereas the USA is separate. Of course, the voting, for them it's a right only, but for us it's also a obligation. All right? So we go beyond it being a right. And that's it. Okay, I hope you found this useful, and I'll have to put it up on YouTube because it's now 8 o'clock and I'm running out of time. Okay, bye.